It's Tuesday, a good 10 minutes NBA style, a little mini tales from the couch. Might call it tales from the chair. I got kind of locked into some of the bad teams last night. I watched Sacramento win. Sometimes I get a little confused on Monday because I'm catching up on other games, and then I start the day, then I'll be like, oh, that game was actually on Saturday or Sunday. Little Clippers, Hornets, Utah. How about their win in Cleveland? How about their last 24 hours? You want to talk about weird? Cleveland continues to be probably the most disappointing team in the entire NBA. I do not know what's going on with that. We can talk about shooting, but it just seems like something's off there. But I've already talked about Cleveland this year. So I want to talk a little bit about the Lakers' loss in Sacramento. All right. I didn't think I was going to start with Lakers today, but that's what we have. And then I'll transition that to something else and we'll get to the mailbag. So the Lakers started the season 15-4. They're now 23-14. So 8-10 stretch over the last 18 games, 4-4 without Austin Reaves. You could say 4-5 because he only played 15 minutes in that Houston game. If you watch that Houston game, that was one of those games where you're like, this is alarming because Houston just looked so dominant athletically, physically in comparison to playing against the Lakers. It just looked like two completely different teams. Granted, Houston has had their problems recently. We can get into maybe the scheduling part of it. I don't know. I might give it another week but I've already spent a lot of time talking about Houston as well. So 4-4 without Reaves. You could say 4-5 because he only played 15 minutes. I think they're going to lose that game no matter what. When they were 15-5, they were the 2 seed behind OKC, who I think was 20-1 at that point, because you can go to Basketball Reference and look up the standings by date if you want to. And I was doing that this morning. But even when they were the 2 seed, and there's a bit, maybe I kind of look at it a little differently because I live in Los Angeles or the South Bay. And there is a premature kind of victory lap for like, hey, you guys, doubted this team. I guess I'm making it too personal because I run into it a lot. It's like, yeah, I don't know. I don't think they're better than like 5 teams in the West. And they have this great record, but they didn't have a very good point differential. And there was some stuff there that I still think was concerning about what it was. But hell, if I were a Lakers fan and they had the 2 seed and had that kind of record, you're like, all right, let's go. But that's not who they've been. That point differential may have told you that it was a little misleading record-wise. Their point differential today is 8th best in the West, 18th best in the NBA. Usually that'll tell a little bit more truth about your team, at this stage of the season, right? So if you look at the full audit on the season, they're 11th on offense, 26th on defense. If you go from December 1st through this last 18-game stretch where they've been a below 500 basketball team, they're 17th on offense, 28th on defense. Sacramento gets them last night. 2 in a row for the Kings. Don't let the Kings get hot. Again, beating Houston on Sunday. So the Lakers are kind of a mess right now. And I don't know if this is just going to be their bad stretch like everybody else has a bad stretch. And I'll kind of summarize this whole thing. But we knew they were going to be bad on defense. But there's nights like last night. And sure, you could look at the shooting differential and say it's a make or miss. I don't think that was a make or miss game. Like, oh, we had good looks. All right, fine. You had good looks, but so did they. There's one series here where I want to point this out because it was so bad. It's like 112, 102. So we're under the 4-minute mark. And they want to trap DeRozan. They want to blitz him hard double, but it wasn't even really like it was in some sort of action. He's really far away from the hoop. He's like beyond the 3-point line. But it was like, let's double DeRozan. And then we're going to be in rotation off of that. But if we know our rotations, you should be fine. And we're going to leave Precious Achiuwa alone. Like there's always somebody you're going to leave alone. Like if you watched what they were doing to Vando last night, like Vando, there were possessions where Sacramento Kings weren't even pretending that anybody cared that he was in the corner. So it's on, if you're watching on TV, Sacramento's going right to left. DeRozan's closest to us. DeRozan gets doubled. He swings it to Monk. Okay. And Monk doesn't even have the basketball yet. And LeBron is in the opposite corner, closed out on Precious Achiuwa. And JJ, not Barea, Redick, is waving LeBron up like, you're going to have to go to Monk. You're going to have to go to Monk. And they swing it to Monk. LeBron is incredibly late, hits the 3. JJ just puts his head down like, you got to be kidding me. So then they do it again. They double. This time LeBron knows, okay, I've got to get out on Monk. Monk has the ball. He has LeBron, but Luke is still on that side. And so he's like, you know what? I'm going to just run a screen. I think it wasn't Achiuwa because of what I'm going to tell you what happens. Screen comes up. Monk switches into Luka, blows right past him, goes baseline. Baseline's coming up to help. Achua's in the opposite corner, which they don't care about. That's by design. They get it to Achua, and then he hits the three. You're like, all right, this isn't a lot of fun. When your perimeter defenders are this bad, Luka, LeBron, and then, Austin, I think at least fights to get in a position and knows what he's supposed to do, as opposed to Luka, who just freelances and takes possessions off, and LeBron, who's very clever at making it look like he's closing out on something that's an assignment, but it's just whatever the shortest distance is to make it look like there's going to be some effort there defensively. It's just not. And by the way, I think the league is almost too respectful about LeBron defensively. I don't think they hunt him the way they probably should. Be like, come on, buddy, come on up here in this switch, and then I'm going to take you off the dribble. And look, for a possession, I think LeBron's still so athletic at this age that he can close off the angle or something. But if you're asking him to do it consistently all night, it's just not going to happen. The offense is still, obviously really, remarkable. But Luka is, as we know, such a poor defender. You're adding all these things together. So then you go, okay, well, what's the back line part of this? I think LaRavia actually fights his ass off. I'd like to, as an aside, when LaRavia has the ball in the corner and is driving into the paint, at his size and his handle, just go up to the rim, man. And I know he's like a little deferential because it's Luka or it's LeBron or when Austin's got it going, but there's some buckets in there for LaRavia that he's passing on. But if you have Ayton, I don't need to do a huge Ayton thing, even though, they closed with Jackson for a really long time in one of the games last week. He's not going to, he's really only there for Luka lobs, and he's going to hit a pick and pop every now and then, but he's never making anyone feel him. He's never going to have you feel like he's being forceful physically. He just doesn't want to do it. He's never going to do it. He's never done it. He is the most talented. He's unbelievably talented, which is why everybody falls for this in the beginning of it. So like, there's all these things that I'm pointing out here defensively. It's like, where's the guy you're actually afraid of? I think in theory, it's supposed to be Vando, and maybe Rui against some bigger guys, because I think at times he's matched up well against them, but on the perimeter it's different. The Luka part of this on offense, because now it's going to start getting ugly. If they keep losing like this, and it's when you're doing your thing and you're the man in Dallas, it's an entirely different ballgame than being the face of the Lakers, even though this really was a gap year, which I think that start screwed everybody up and starting to think like, hey, what's the high end possibility here for the Lakers? And so now it's being watched through that lens. And then when it's been this bad and Luka's having these games where it just, you're like, wow, he really has the ball a lot. Like, what is going on here? And then the defense isn't very good. Now, his overall numbers, if you're going to stat line me, you're going to be like, you're going to be sitting here when he goes 42, 7, and 8 and be giving him a hard time. Yeah. I thought that third quarter was gross last night. I don't know. It was him being pissed off about the game in general. I think Sacramento was amped up. I don't know if it was the Schroeder stuff, but it looked like Monk was out for blood last night. But in that third quarter, Luka, who has a career high usage rate at 38, his usage rate in that third quarter, because I looked it up this morning, was 46. I thought it was going to be 100. Just possession after possession. Nobody else is touching the basketball, and he's working it. And it's still the best shot possible because of who he is and what he's able to create. And on top of everything else, this free throw stuff that's happening with Luka is disgusting. So he right now is averaging 11.9 free throw attempts per game. That is the second most free throw attempts per game in a season for any player in the last 38 years. Giannis was a touch higher just a couple years ago. And then everybody else, it's like Wilt. There's a Jerry West year in there. My guy Chuck's got a year in there. Jordan's behind Luka on this one. And the crazy thing is that Luka, career high usage, career high free throw rate, which is 0.525, just under the absurd Harden years. He's shooting in the restricted area at a career low level, not his conversions, but the actual number of attempts he's in the restricted area. It was usually like 0.2. Now it's like 0.07. 0.2 was like in the beginning of his career. And then look, he doesn't need to be right at the 3.3 foot line. He's just so good and crafty, and all these things are going to happen, but he's getting literally every single call on top of everything else. And in that third quarter, despite the shots and the 42 points, I think he had 40 with a minute and a half left to go in the third quarter. It's just not very good basketball. It's not fun for anybody else to play with. And, it gets back to one of those long-term, it was an epiphany years and years ago where I'm like, even though you have these guys that are so dynamic and the points per possession are so much better with this guy having the ball in his hands. Like long term, it's not really that great. And then you start to think of like, well, how do they get to the NBA finals if this is what he did with a high usage? Does the team have to be designed perfectly around him? Do you need multiple lob options? Do you need dynamic corner three guys? Do you need an awesome defensive guard right next to him? Because that's not necessarily what he had in Kyrie during that run. So these things aren't like mandatory, but it's pretty clear with this Lakers thing. And this is really what it is I think that start got people thinking about this team a lot differently than the reality of it. Maybe this isn't a reality. Maybe they figure out something, but I don't know if Reaves just coming back and offensing the hell out of everybody going, we're going to be so great offensively that we'll be able to survive a little bit, because I think ultimately you start projecting them out going, all right, who are they going to beat? Who are they beating in the playoffs? Like if they're not in the top four, who do you like them against? Do you like them against OKC? No, even though I know they've hit a weird stretch here as well. Do you like them against Denver? No. Houston, I cannot get that Houston regular season game a couple weeks ago out of my head. So we'll see, what the next matchup is. Doesn't mean like they can't beat them for a game. Minnesota, San Antonio. San Antonio against this front line of guys, I guess they would just put Vando into his hip or Rui. But I'm talking about Wembanyama. So look, I think if you're looking at them, you're going, okay, realistically, that point differential probably told us a lot more truth. But I thought last night was pretty tough. Anyway, as I was looking at this, I was going, okay, Sacramento's not an exciting long-term team, and trying to think about their best asset. So if you looked at the bottom 6 records in the NBA, it's New Orleans, it's the Pacers, Sacramento, Washington, Brooklyn, Utah. Did you just say 7 teams? I'm going to not include Indiana in this because I want to rank the bottom 6. All right. So we're going to go New Orleans, Sacramento, Washington, Brooklyn, Utah, and Sacramento. Well, no, I already have Sacramento in there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Did you hear that Russillo pod the other day where you started counting out loud? Sure did. Charlotte would be the other team that's in that group. So if we went through it and said, okay, forget the picks, forget about contracts. If we just went talent on the roster, rank the bottom 6 in order of the ones that you would most want. So if you went best assets on these teams, New Orleans, I still think it's Trey, then maybe it's Queen, then Fears, then my guy Herb, Eves or Zion. Maybe Zion's third for you. Maybe Zion's second for some of you guys. I don't know. One injury away from him being behind all those other guys. I would allow the argument. Sacramento, not asset rich at this point. Keegan, he's had a tough year this year. He's out for 3 weeks with his ankle thing. He's not shooting it great, but he's 25 years old and he's 37% from 3 first career. And you figure you can survive with him defensively. Washington, Keyshawn George, Trey Johnson, Sarr in that order. It depends on who you like better between Coulibaly and his defense or Bub Carrington's shooting. 21, 20 years old, both of them, so they're still pretty young. Although I didn't mention Dylan Cardwell with Sacramento. Gave some nice effort minutes last night. Brooklyn, Michael Porter Jr.'s numbers are off the charts. Like his usage went from 20 with Denver to 30 with them, so you knew he was going to have a million shots, but the efficiency and volume and what he's been the first half of the season is terrific. So he feels like more of an asset, certainly, than he was during that trade. But then after that, it gets a little lean. Maybe Yegor Dioman. I kind of like him. Blink test, when you watched him in college, you're like, oh, this is exciting. Look at this guy's handle and how he sees the court at this size. Like, what's going on with his shooting? If he figures out his shooting, he might be the best overall asset in the team. Maybe a little bit early for that. Cam Thomas is a 20-minute a game guy as they've shifted to prioritizing defense. I like a little Danny Wolf. Numbers aren't great. Doesn't matter. Claxton, Clowney. To me, I don't know why Claxton's ever taking any threes, but if you said efficiency numbers and the defense rebounding, you take him probably over Clowney. Utah, in this order, Keontae George, Lauri Markkanen, Ace Bailey, Walker Kessler, Taylor Hendricks, Clayton. I still hold out a little hope for Taylor Hendricks, but I am a little bit worried about guys that don't have a ton of on-ball experience that are then off the ball in the offense and coming off an injury and everything else. It's tough to become a guy that's more dynamic with the ball in your hands when you never get to touch it in NBA games. I think there's maybe even a concern on like Mobley going, is this ever going to happen? Or is this kind of the full thing? And we'd all take Mobley on our team, but what's that thing that gets you to that next level? Some of these guys just never end up dribbling the ball enough. And that's probably not something to be like, hey, you know what? My handle really picked up at 28 years old. Charlotte, Knipple, Miller, LaMelo. Is he the third best asset? I don't know. Diabate's numbers are just outrageous. Best efficiency numbers. He's 24 years old. I like Diabate. So look, I'll do it in this order. I think Charlotte has the best roster of the bottom six because of Knipple. I'll go New Orleans because of Trey over anyone over Utah. Maybe I am valuing Trey Murphy too much. That's fine. You know what we can do is chill on the updates of these stories as if it's breaking news that the price for Trey Murphy is going to be high. Let me know when the price on somebody really good and young is low. That's interesting. Like, yeah, talking to league sources, they kind of just want to get rid of this guy. He's not a vibes guy. That would be an interesting story. No shit, Trey Murphy's going to cost a lot. He's 25, can handle, jump out of the gym and hit threes, and can hit threes off of his own creation. I think I'd probably still rather have that than Keontae George, despite the fact that George is like ridiculous. He's so good right now. But there's also another conversation of like looking at some of the smaller guards that score a lot, that don't play any defense. The advanced stuff isn't necessarily that great. Like, especially in this sort of Mount No More phase of the guards, of where it's Trey getting traded, Ja on the market, LaMelo being talked about with all this stuff. I don't know who the fourth guard would be on Mount No More. I'll have to think about that one. But Keontae's like a great kid. Everybody loves him out in Salt Lake. But I still think I'd rather have Trey over him. So I'll go Charlotte, New Orleans, Utah, then Washington, then Brooklyn, and Sacramento. They should be 31st. It's tough. It's tough out there from an asset standpoint. Okay, NBA mailbag. Let's bring in Ceruti. You can hit us up with your questions, and we will read a couple of them every week. NBAMailbagRR at gmail.com. Good to see you, Ceruti. You look well.
What's up? Thank you. Appreciate that. Is that a shot at Kyle or?
Oh, God, man. You guys, I got to be careful because, like, I think I'm just giving Kyle the what for. The business is two pals would, and now I don't know. I'll be better on Wednesday.
No, it was just a joke. We love you, Kyle. I got a couple nuggets before, not about the Denver Nuggets, but nuggets. You don't even have to respond to them, but just things off of things that I heard you just talk about. One, Lakers 6 and 7 since Rich Paul became a podcast host. Just saying.
I like Rich. I like Max. The breakouts for that, I've got to give the pod a full listen. I like both guys, but the breakouts, like if I were Austin Reaves' agents, being like, "Was he fucking trading us?" You're not just some podcast host, man. You're a pretty important dude with the Lakers.
Yeah. Yep.
Although perhaps less important, and that's why they don't like their current plight. I did like when Rich said, like, hey, where the hell's LeBron going? Like, what are we doing? Despite the fact that we spent, August, September suggesting like something weird could happen. Like, who's trading for him with that contract for 1 year?
I would agree. I kind of want to see Austin Reaves traded, though, just because I like Austin Reaves and I want to see him explore the space a little bit. Maybe get his own thing going. Who knows?
He'd make a hell of a Celtic.
I don't want to see him there, with all due respect. No, but it'd be fun. Like a reset in Memphis, and it's just his team.
Would you trade Anthony Black for Reaves?
Yeah.
Whoa, you said that fast.
Well, because I love Reaves, but now I'm like,
fast.
No. Actually, I don't. Oh man, that's a good question. Like Reaves, obviously, is a better player, but I kind of like what Anthony Black brings to the Magic more than maybe what Reaves would bring to the Magic, if that makes sense.
I think it makes a ton of sense. I think
love both guys, obviously. No.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of just a fun little exercise there. but him shooting 35% from three on 4.5 attempts per game now. He had there was a bunch of matchups that they could exploit last night. Like New Orleans decided to close with the bad defensive group. Herb wasn't around. So you've got Zion out there to pick on, Fears, Queen. What else? I think Eves was out there, and then obviously Trey. But then there was a pool combo. Like at one point when I was charting it, there's 4 different guys to pick on here. And anytime Paolo could get deep, he was just going to work it. Although I got to tell you, I'm a little worried about some of the Paolo, like he looks a little slow at times. I don't know if he's working himself back into shape here, but there's some stuff that I'm noticing off ball with him. I don't know if it's like a lack of interest or what's going on. But anyway,
I don't
I
think
know
it's
you're
that.
going to jump in here.
Yeah.
Paolo had like a matchup he liked, but Black was wide open in the corner and he had just hit one. And he was kind of like, hey, where's the ball?
I like that. I want
Yeah.
my guy. Yeah, listen, this is a pro Anthony Black podcast for a while since the draft. But the Paolo thing, just quickly, I think he's still struggling to figure out how he fits in with the Bane thing. And obviously France is out, so it should be easier for him. But I don't know. Like it almost feels like he doesn't really know what his role should be. And he hasn't really figured out the like, hey, move the ball quickly. Everybody kind of gets a touch. I'm not sitting here telling you I'm worried, but it is a little bit of a concern. I'll just say that.
Yeah, it's not just the Pacers game. Like, hey, everybody shut up about him. I think we're on the same page. I'm not like turning the page on it. I feel like there's awkward possessions in there where I'm like not quite sure what he's doing. And I don't know if it's his own frustration or what you're talking about. But like there's another play last night where he lost. He was lucky. It didn't matter, but he just lost somebody. I mean, everybody loses guys on the baseline now, but it was just him not being engaged at all. So whatever. Let's table that. It's a teaser on like I'd like to see it look a little bit better, and it's not just a raw number thing with him. All right.
Yeah, we'll do it after the Germany trip. So there you go. Franz might be back. Mo's back too, so that's great.
Mo was back last night.
Love Mo. Again, we'll table this. Underrated guy. One of the most underrated players in the league, in my opinion. Okay.
I know a girl named Mo. She's tall.
That's it's unfortunate for her. Okay, unless she's in the WNBA, maybe it's awesome. Question, Ari. This is Ryan. Does the Nuggets win over the Sixers without any of their starters indicate that the NBA should look to expand sooner rather than later? The talent pool seems off the charts, and a lot of these players are not getting a shot to showcase their talents. Enjoy the show, Ari. Expansion. Seems like it's cooled.
It does seem like it's cooled. So, I mean,
2 years ago, a year ago, it was like, oh yeah, like done.
Yeah.
2 teams, Seattle, Vegas, LeBron's going to own one of them. And now I feel like I haven't heard about that in a long time.
You would think just because of like everything that's out there, like any business is going, how do we continue to create more and more revenue the entire time? And we're in the midst of no one really caring, like, could we be doing any long-term damage to the product? It's just like, whatever. And, in the moment to moment concerns and worries and these things that we forget about immediately, like maybe the businesses are generally right with this stuff. I don't know. I don't know if it's my age or what I'm married to traditionally, but I would say there's just a lot of stuff that's happening in sports in general. It's like, is this really the best? Like, I think college football's whatever that arc of where the hell is this going? It's on the other side of like, you've gone too far. And
all the problems that they have, they've literally created for themselves.
Yeah, right. And so I don't know that it means like college football is doomed or it's ruined, but I've already done that segment plenty of times here. I do think that there's more depth of talent now than ever before. I don't, this era argument that is really cyclical that nobody ever wants to change your mind on. I've did it with PJ a little bit. There's things today that I see that I think are just so special that I can't believe anybody thinks that these other eras were as good as what we're seeing now from just a talent standpoint. Having said that, you can travel, you can carry. This whole pivot foot thing blows my mind that now all of a sudden you can just change your pivot foot. As a guy that modeled his post-up game after McHale, and if I got it going a little bit, and then there could be a guy on another team being like, oh, you're moving your pivot foot there a little bit. And he's like, fuck off. Now you can just plan it, pivot, and then change it. And some guy's going to tell me that in the rule book, it's like, well, okay, but it was like the same as the step back three where you could step back and then go to like the side. It's like, yeah, I don't know. Everyone just kind of knew that that was a travel and you weren't supposed to do that the entire time. So the traveling, and I would also say this bulldozing thing that you're allowed to do in offense, which has just gotten out of hand this year, where you can run as fast, you can be Bo Jackson smashing into a middle linebacker into the paint. And as a guy that used to say ban charges, I say thank God for charges, but they don't even call those really anymore if the guy's not, this whole legal guarding position thing to me is total bullshit because it's this catch-all that whatever. So anyway, there was a little mini era rant all over again here because the old school guys that show you the Pistons highlight where they foul the guy really hard and tell you how tough it was back then. When I look at teams and I'm thinking about the guys that aren't even playing, I'm like, this is a really, really deep league. I think it's the deepest level of talent that we've ever seen in the league. So I don't know that that win necessarily means like, hey, because it's a 1-game result. I mean, it is a crazy result. Denver comes back, they play their ass off. You want to talk Doc Rivers rule of like, hey, I'd rather them have all their players because that's who we're prepared for. And when the best player isn't playing, then my guys are going to take the night off. And how many times that applies throughout the course of a season is incredible. That's like the all-time Doc Rivers rule of like, I don't even know if they would have a scouting report on that group of 5 dudes that they had out there at different times. You're like, wait, Peyton Watson ISOs, high pick and rolls for Pickett all night? Like, Zeke Najee, we could close out on this guy. Like, what the hell is going on here? So I think yes to expansion. I don't know if that result proves that that's why it should happen. And I'm a little surprised that all the momentum it seemed that it was going to have to adding 2 more teams has basically come to a standstill. But I don't have any inside info on that lately because I haven't asked anybody.
I'm old enough to remember 15, 20 years ago. Remember they were talking about there were too many teams. Like there were like the bottom 6 just like had no talent, and people were like, "Do we need to like cut this?" Because like there's guys that should be G League guys that are in the NBA and it's not working. And now it's like it's crazy how it's just completely flipped in like a decade, maybe more than a decade, 15, 20 years.
I think those early 2000s were rough, man.
It was awful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is funny because like that's like my peak. I grew up. That's like when I watched probably the most basketball and I was the most in love with it. And like it actually looking back was kind of terrible. But I don't know if it's like the international thing that's exploded because there's just more talent around the world or the US market has gotten better. But like legitimately, there were 6 teams that had nobody you could look forward to back in the day. And now it's like the bad teams, you just nailed the Pelicans, you just listed off like 6 guys that I would want, like legitimately.
I would
they're
want
terrible.
Trey. I would want Fears. I would want Queen. I would want Herb. I would want Zion.
It's crazy. You're like,
without
how are they not
internet
doing
access? Eves. I would want. I don't want Poole.
Nope.
I don't know that I'd hold out any more hope for Hawkins to translate those NBA shots that he made at UConn to, I guess, not making him in the NBA. There's just a lot of guys. There's a lot of guys on bad teams that I'm like really excited to watch all the time. Look, the Lakers, the Shaq Kobe thing early 2000s was so much fun. And that Portland team was so much fun. So there's the Sacramento thing. There's some high-end teams there that were appointment viewing, especially when you had limited the ability to be able to watch all these teams play. You know what I mean? It's not like I had League Pass 25 years ago in my shitty apartment when I was late on rent every single month. So when I'm talking about like but once you got a little deeper into the league, especially some of those East years, like these are the teams that may have a chance of coming out of the East. And yeah, that's kind of that Iverson Sixers team. Like, I don't think that was a nice story. And it's a huge, like you and I always talk about like how much work is Aaron Rodgers' ring doing, which we need to do that full segment of like listing which rings are doing the most work. There's some NBA finals appearances historically that are doing even more work than a ring. And I think that Iverson 2001 finals appearance is like, it's almost like a half ring. Like, no, see, like, they went on that run and they had no chance against the Lakers. Although when they won that first game, it was hilarious. People were like, they really going to do this? Like, no.
I always think about those Wizards teams, the Gilbert Arenas teams that were like, those teams weren't good, but they were like a 5 seed every year. They had no was it Javaris Crittenton? Yeah, I don't want to bring up
they were teammates, yes.
Yeah, that was a thing. Who else? Andre Blatch, I think, was on that team, right? Like those teams were bad, and they were a 5 seed every year. Felt like they played the Cavs every year.
Yeah, that was the Wizards Daily was like Van Pelt and I started in 2009. But like anytime the Wizards has any stretch, they're like, hey, you got to bring back Wizards Daily. And you're like, no, it can't ever be brought back. That was the most absurd roster of dudes. Andre
JaVale
Blatch
McGee was on that
tweets,
team.
yeah, JaVale McGee. I think Nick Young, JaVale McGee, I think tweeted one time about being pissed off that like 4 Wizards couldn't get into a club. Like they wouldn't even let us cut the line. That might have been
This was
Blatch.
this is a 5 seed in 2005. Gilbert Arenas,
That's
Steve Blake, Kwame Brown, Juan Dixon, Brendan Haywood, Larry Hughes, Antoine Jameson.
it's better than I thought it was going to be.
Is it? Yeah,
There's 2 Terps on that squad.
Yeah. Juan Dixon didn't really work out.
Blake had a nice career.
Yeah, no, yeah. But Juan Dixon from the Maryland days, sorry to Van Pelt, but yeah, just probably expected.
I think Juan did enough for our guy Van Pelt.
Oh, definitely. That's fair. All right. One more, and this is 2 emails, but basically one question. 2 guys. It's GC and who's this? Nicholas. They basically are asking like, what do we think of a Ja for LaMelo trade? I put it in the trade machine. It is possible. We got to ask Bobby Marks if it's like actually possible, though. I don't know. The trade machine.
It's almost identical salary. It's 39 and high 37 for Melo, I think. So,
yep.
All right, let me just throw it to you. Who says no?
I don't want Ja. I don't like LaMelo, but I don't want Ja. So no, I'm saying no. Why would I want him if I'm the Hornets?
Yeah, I want nothing to do with it. I'd extend LaMelo before I would do that.
I would agree.
And I'm not a LaMelo guy either. It is funny though. Did you see Carmelo Anthony's comments on LaMelo? He said it's like he's playing 2K out there.
I didn't, but yes.
I'm like, I'm glad somebody else said it because LaMelo, people think that because I was very anti him before the draft, and then, he comes onto the scene, you're like, oh, wow, this guy's like pretty talented guy. He's putting up these numbers and everything. And it's like, okay, I'm going to get draft stuff wrong all the time. But it was like, oh, you got that one really wrong. And then as it's played out, I'm like, like, this is maybe worse. It might have been better if he was just bad.
Yeah, because you're in limbo. You're stuck.
Yeah,
because clearly, like, the guy is something. And I still get crap from people with our NBA star versus NFL QB comps because I did the Caleb LaMelo thing, and obviously Caleb's had a nice run since then, but and I was wrong. That's not correct, so I'll openly admit that. But
did you think it was right, or were you throwing it out as a hypothetical?
It was kind of more of like I knew you'd be mad about it, and I think it was a good content play, but I didn't actually believe that. But people got mad about that, and they still are mad. And now I get tweets when Caleb has good games like, "Oh, you still think he's LaMelo?" And the point of it is that both guys are really talented. I think Caleb's incredible. I mean, that throw obviously to Loveland was one of the most ridiculous throws I've ever seen. But I also think LaMelo is insanely talented when you watch him on a night out basis. Caleb has seemed to figure it out a little bit more than LaMelo has, but that was kind of the point of that. And so, yeah, you're sort of stuck because you're like, this guy could be great. And if we trade him, what if he ends up being like a multi-time all-star and maybe he's second fiddle on a pretty good team? I don't believe that to be true, but you never know. Because if you're the Hornets, you're looking at it going, hey, he's an asset. This guy's really talented. Like other teams would want to have him. Why are we just going to give him away for free? But I'm definitely not trading him for Ja because Ja, I think not only is Ja now probably a worse player, but what even is Ja? What does he want to be at this point? You get all the off the court stuff. I don't want any of that. At least LaMelo, the injury stuff is there, but he's still. I have any questions about him as a dude.
Yeah, that's the thing is I don't know whatever you think about LaMelo and his approach to things or whatever. I don't think it's at the same level of concern that it is for Ja, and that's what's going to be so interesting about whether or not Ja's actually moved somewhere, right? Because he is going to be so defiant, delusional. There's probably another word in there when he does that first sit-down interview when he's on the new team and it's everybody else's fault and they don't get it. And
I'm about to take over
right. Yeah. And then his dad's there courtside wearing his hoodie after he gets suspended, being like, oh, okay. So this is a super accountable group.
But this goes back to my point about the NBA 15, 20 years ago being so the lack of talent, I guess. There would be 6 teams that would line up a trade for Ja back then. Just be like, hey, we got to kick the tires. Now there's not a team that it's worth it for. There just isn't.
I also think you had dumber front offices back then, too.
That's
But
fair.
there still could be. I think the Wizards in that group is a really smart group, and I'm still surprised about this Trey thing. I do wonder if it was ownership going, you guys need to be better next year. All right. Like, end of story. Like, be better. And the obsession of just, which I talked about on the podcast, is there is a very common thread when you have that job of like, it's so hard to make moves, especially now with all these extra restrictions. We've talked about it all the time. Like, you wait around with cap space for what? Everybody signs extensions now. And then if they sign the extension, they worry about it later. Like, I may not even want to be here. I'll take the extension now. I'll get the higher raises. Boom. I don't need to even wait. Like, this list of players that wait around for free agency, it doesn't really happen anymore. So now hoarding cap space is pointless other than taking advantage of somebody else who has to dump some kind of contract. But I'd say a lot of the contracts, like, we don't have the outrageous contracts that we used to have all the time. Although, there's some high end numbers of some of these guys that get maxed out where you're just kind of like, hey, is there any chance we could like not max you out? So the trade restrictions that you have, you've got to hit it in the draft, which they apparently want to change again. Like, I'm very anti messing with rewarding bad teams, just because I think it's so hard. I think it's so hard, even if the idea of tanking goes against everything that we would ever prioritize for those of us that care about competition. So, good luck on that trade. That'll do it for a good 36 minutes today. So, just over. I thought we'd go under 30. I told everybody we'd go under 30, and there's just maybe one day.
I hope not.
But not today. Make sure you check out the Ryen Russillo Show and subscribe to the podcast. And we're cranking out 4 shows a week. Thanks. Talk to you next week.